Welcome, dear friends, to Kardec Radio, where we're nourishing our souls and have been so for 9 years. What a blessing. We haven't done this alone, of course. It comes from above, but here in our horizontal life, we have hundreds of people who have been joining us for the last 9 years, yes. And we are to share these teachings that have been illuminating us. And this time on earth, more than ever, we need help. We need togetherness. We need oneness. And that's the word, oneness. Many people turn to us and say, what is oneness? And it sounds so much like 2,000 years ago, when the Roman patricians turned to other people and refused to be alike. But we can no longer be like that. We're being called to this feeling of equality. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing through this hour. Yes, we're dedicating a whole hour to raising awareness about equality. Nowadays, George Floyd and many other cases, and brothers and sisters of ours have been sacrificed so we can finally come up to our senses and say, enough is enough. But that's not enough, just saying it. We need more than words. We need measures, educational measures, legislator. We have so many dimensions to care for and bring equality to the front lines of our lives. And especially at a time in which the pandemic of the coronavirus brings us to a common ground. Nobody is privileged. Yes, we are all at risk, showing to us that more than ever, we are so equal. But how can we do so if we still play this game of being different? It's not only about the race, it's about gender, it's about profession, socioeconomic status, etc., etc. So we're going to be discussing this, and we have special friends who will be joining us today. From their angles, perspectives, and experiences, they will be making this moment as rich as possible. So we have, first and foremost, I would like to introduce you to Liz Pignon, who comes from Texas. Welcome, Liz, to Kardec Radio. How are you?
Thank you for your kind invitation. I'm very humbled.
Yeah, it's good. You know, Liz is a third generation spiritist. Yes, she is. And she's also an educator working on her PhD in educational leadership at Texas Christian University. And she has been an advocate for so many causes. Liz, would you like to share a little bit? You have wonderful children, you have 4 kids, and that's one of your lines of work as well, to help other children who have disabilities, etc., especially during the pandemic. Would you like, I would like to give some space for you to talk about how important it is for all of us to be ever so conscientious about others who are more vulnerable to the exposure of the virus.
That's right. I am an educator, and one of my passions, because of my children, I have four special needs children. My children, I have a adopted older son who has autism and is IDD, and then I have triplets that were born at 1 pound, and they have cerebral palsy and autism and ADHD and many things. And it's so important to be a loud voice for my children and all the children that come with these special needs. Because if uh, our regular kids are struggling with all this, I can't imagine the struggle that our kids are going through. So I dedicate my life work to my children because I need to be a voice for them and for others like them, especially in the state of Texas. It's a real big need here in Texas.
Yes, it's a beautiful state. Yes, and people feel we need to help out, right, Liz? We need to raise awareness, and not only during the pandemic, but we're talking about making everything ever more accessible to children and adults who have special needs.
Right.
We still have to evolve to another level to really make it a fair ground for everyone, right?
I agree. We have to work so hard. I mean, one of my daughters is in a wheelchair. So I'm working hard to be a strong voice for my daughter who's brown, differently abled, and a woman. You know, we have to make the world a better place for her and others like her.
Yes, I agree with you. And we want to talk more about this. And talking about this, being a woman, having some form of special needs, and being in this world right now, we want to bring our dear friend, yes, and host of Cardiac Radio, Carol Correa. How are you, Carol?
Hello, dear Vanessa. What a joy to be here on Cardiac Radio's ninth anniversary. Thank you. And addressing such an important topic, equality today.
Right.
Yes.
And Carol, as Liz was saying, um, there's so much to implement on Earth to make
Yes.
the world more um, a fair world for everyone, right?
Right. You're so right. Currently, we have much to evolve at, and still there's a lot of labeling put onto all of us. And those of us, like myself and like Liz's children, who are differently able, who are visibly different, are put on labels more often than not, and we often do not have a chance given to us by mainstream society to show them what we were brought to this world to do, because we are labeled right away. So Spiritism has a beautiful role in this scenario here, because Spiritism brings the light of discernment, and Spiritism shows us that all of us are children of God, and all of us are much more than whatever label others put on to us. And we are not here to judge. We are here to embrace one another. So I am very grateful to Kardec Radio, because Kardec Radio is doing a beautiful job spreading the word, and we have to re-educate ourselves, reshape the lenses through which we see the world, to rid ourselves of these heavy labels, so we can be the children of God that we are meant to be.
And Carol, before mentioning here,
Mhm.
Liz mentioned to us about her children being born so tiny and going through cerebral palsy, and your story is not different. And
No,
today,
it's actually very similar. I was born when my mother was 5.5 months along her pregnancy, and I was less than 1 kilogram. I weighed less than 1 kilogram. And the doctors asked my parents to prepare for my death as soon as I was born. And out of all the premature babies that were born 45 years ago in that particular hospital, São Paulo, Brazil, on that day, I was the only one that survived.
yeah. And today, Carol Correa is faculty at the University of Delaware. She is one of the most active spiritist workers I've encountered in the United States, to say the least. To say the least.
Wow.
Thank you,
Thank you for sharing
Vanessa.
your story.
Thank
Amen.
you. It was beautiful teamwork. Of course, Liz, of course.
You bring
Thank you.
hope, right, Liz?
Lots of hope. Lots of hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we want to bring our highlight. Traveling Rabbi. And he is FOS. What does that mean, Strelbin?
F, that means follower of spiritism.
And you are in Albany, but Carol knows you from when you guys were participating in the Spiritist Society of Philadelphia with Marisa Mello and Ed Mello, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I remember the first time.
Correct.
I remember the first time meeting my friend Correa, and she walked in the room, and she was just one big bundle of love. And we used to go out and we used to meet with at these homes for people with AIDS and people with multiple sclerosis, and she was a wonderful example on how to love. I learned how to love people when we would go to these meetings from Caroline.
Wow. You know what's funny? When she mentioned you to me, she gave that example and said, he gave so much love to the people in the nursing home. That's what that the description you just had about her was her description about you.
Yes, what you see in me is a reflection of you, Strabon, but thank you.
Wow. So thank you so much for joining us, Strauben. And it's great to have you here at a time in which more than ever we need your voice to reach out to people who are speaking up and want to speak up louder, requesting changes for what's happening in the world, the injustices, the inequalities. And we would like to hear from you how you feel about what's happening nowadays, especially after Floyd's case.
Oh yeah, well, obviously that was something that was very difficult just to watch. Okay, and just to see that that type of violence could be in someone else's heart, to do not to just a black man, but to do that to any man, you know, and and so yeah, there's a lot of frustration because of the history of police brutality against people of color, you know. But I do have to tell you that what was most warming about this was that at the protest that I attended is that there were more white people, more non-African Americans that were marching. You know, we were one big group, one voice. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Yeah.
and so that was heartening. But accompanied with that was some violence, riots, and for people who I guess didn't think people were listening, and they wanted somebody to listen. And um, unfortunately, in this world, people don't listen until you know there's some upheaval. I wish it wasn't like that. I
Mm-hmm.
wish that we could all sit down and talk
Mm-hmm.
and work things out. But you know, sometimes that gets the voice, and I'm not saying that that's the answer. Not at all. But I do hope that spirit of coming together, because that's the answer right there, is
Mm-hmm.
that we all work together. Because if there is a solution to this, it's not going to be a black solution, and it's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be a white solution. It's going to be a people solution.
Wow.
It's going to be a solution because I hear God, to me, and this is just my opinion, for what it's worth. This is our Father, God, our Father, and you know how children are fighting, and
Yeah,
the father will put them in a room together and say, "Work it out."
yeah,
This is God saying, telling us, "Work it out, guys. Work it out."
yeah,
You know, and so how do we work it out?
yeah,
We don't work it out in violence. That does not work. That's just an eye for an eye. And we know an eye for an eye is not the direction Jesus wants us to, you
yeah,
know? And
yeah,
so for me, an important part of this whole thing is in forgiveness,
yeah,
rising above all of this hatred that's going on, or this disappointment, or
yeah.
any of these negative feelings, and rising above.
But I have to say something. When I moved to the United States in 1998 to be a postdoc at University of Maryland, 22 years ago, for the first time I realized I was white. And it's funny to say because I never thought of myself as a white person. I came from Brazil. I never thought like, oh, I'm white, I'm not white. And when I came to Baltimore, which for me is my birth city, because that's where I began a new journey in my life, and I'm very thankful to Baltimore and the United States as a whole. I remember being at the University of Maryland and barely having colleagues or students who were African Americans in a city that is massively African American. It has a sad story. It was the second largest entrance of slaves in the United States after New Orleans, Louisiana. So I've encountered so many scenarios. I remember I was dating a person who was not white, and I received an anonymous letter. I received an anonymous letter saying somebody who was pretending to write to my dad saying, how come, and using words I'm not going to repeat here, you should come and see your daughter dating a person who is not white. I couldn't believe my eyes. And I remember encountering colleagues somewhere who would say, if I were you, I wouldn't go to X place because, and using words that were so filled with prejudices. And when I had students and colleagues who were African Americans, they shared their thoughts and feelings with me. And because I was Brazilian, it was easier for them to open their hearts, because we didn't share that type of history. Though in Brazil we had slavery too, sad to say. But things turned around in a completely different way. We mixed in Brazil. Here, we refrain from mixing. So here's a book I want to refer to everybody, adults and children, though it's mostly for children, named Mixed by Ari Chang. We used in the latest online lesson at Cardiac Radio for Kids to teach about it. Talks about the beauty of mixing. And even science shows to us that we are much better when we mix our gene pool. We're stronger. We can be, this diversity is so enriching. But in we're talking about 20 years ago. It's not like 100. It's not like 200, 2,000 years ago. And to date, when I see what I see on TV, I can believe that we're still there, that we're still discussing the color of our skin. It blows my mind. I've never seen myself as a white person. Liz, how do you feel when we're talking about what's happening?
And Vanessa, I feel the same way just coming from Illinois, where I was born and raised, to Texas.
Oh,
Um, I didn't feel um, I don't know, but in Chicago, it's more urban. I didn't feel that strong racism that I do here in Texas,
Oh.
where they feel that people have a place and you, it's just weird. But in Illinois, I didn't feel that. So it's almost similar to how you say in Brazil, we were all just together, all just trying to be better. And then I come to Texas and they made sure that I know you are a brown woman.
Mm.
Um, so I've had to struggle very hard at a university where it's primarily white privileged university. Um, so it's just been hard, Vanessa, heartbreaking sometimes. And I don't want that for my children. I want a better place where my child is not looked on by their ability or by their socioeconomic status or by the color of their race or their skin. I want them to be seen as the beautiful individuals that they are, and all our children need to be seen like this. I think
Mhm.
we've come to a time where um, me as a follower of Espiritismo, I like that you had your FOS. I really like that title. Uh, we need to assert ourselves as anti-racist, right? We have this moral obligation as a person to fight against this form of oppression, um, especially those coming from race and color or ability or socioeconomic status.
Mhm.
And I feel more my calling since I've been to Texas to be a voice for our children and um, you know
Yes.
and our families here.
And giving everybody the same opportunity, because when you're talking about, for example, school education in general, university, at admission level, you may be barred right there. That's where you stop. You don't go any further, and that's why you don't see it. And I don't want to be at Cardiac Radio. We avoid controversies, but this is not about controversy. It's about a fact that we need to discuss. And Kardec himself was very courageous to address the issues of the time, and we need to do the same. I remember at a summer program when some of my students during the summer program were African Americans. They were assigned to me, and I loved working with them because of their joy, spontaneity, and hard work. And for a week, I had to travel, and I assigned to two other people to help me out. But it was so interesting when I came back. And I'm saying this, of course, without names, but it's a reality. When I came back, I asked, were you able to do this? Did they help you out? And she was so ethical. This lady, she said, they said they didn't have time. And then I
Mm.
understood. I understood. And that's when this is said, because when I see George Floyd, it's that it's right in your on your face, like, okay, the brutality. But there is a lot of this happening in a very subtle way. And that's when it really gets on the nerves. Because I saw that she was put aside because she was African American. She didn't say anything. I understood it. I talked to the other ones, said, oh, we didn't have time, but didn't we agree? You had to help. Oh, but we didn't have time. And I turned to her and said, there's a competition. I'll make sure that you're going to get what you deserve. You're not going to be left out. Believe it or not, because of course we had wonderful faculty in the team as well. My colleagues were fair, and I didn't need to talk to anybody. She just worked as she worked hard, and she won the first prize.
Mm.
So, but I see she won because people facilitated, because there was somebody. We were facilitating for her in the sense like, go, show who you are, your best. But if people don't, how are we going to know? If they block your way? Right, Stelblin? I mean, for you, you are seeing what's happening around the world, and in spite of being forgiving, we need to raise awareness. that there is a time in which enough is enough and we need fundamental changes. Let's talk about changes that we need to see coming. Would you like to share a thought
Oh,
about it?
yeah, absolutely. Um, One of the things that we saw, and was very apparent, is that when there is a single voice, all right, you have many people, but speaking in one voice, the power that has to change, and I do agree with you. You know, a lot of that change has to start in our schools. Um, um, I've seen African Americans, predominantly African American schools, and they do not have the same resources that other schools have. Okay, and that really puts people at a disadvantage. I think if given, your story was beautiful because given the same opportunity, your friend succeeded tremendously. And I think that's all that anybody is asking for is just the opportunity. But the opportunity has to come with not through violence. It has to come through a single voice, one voice saying, enough is enough. Let's get some equality here. And so I like the fact that we were able to come together for the Floyd situation.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see that same spirit because that's when change happens. Not when just blacks are screaming and not when just whites are screaming. When we scream together with one voice, you know, it's amazing what happens, you know? And so I'd like to see us more of us come together, getting into that room and our father saying, fix this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all come together and fix this because this is our problem.
Yeah.
It's everybody's problem.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
agree, Vanessa.
Yeah.
I think there has to be some deep conversations because there's these systemic changes that need to happen. They need to happen at the university level. They have to happen in the school levels. It has to happen in our local hospitals and mental health. There has to be these systemic changes because if I am brown and everyone I see on those higher levels are white, then how do I know my voice can get up there? So like there has to be some systemic changes um, that need to be done everywhere. You know, Paulo Freire says education alone does not transform society, but neither will society change without it. You know, so it has to be um, a little bit of both. You
Mhm.
know, we do need education, but more than that, we need some systemic changes,
Yeah. And you were talking about structural changes,
right?
right? We
Yes.
need structural changes and we need to stop with the privileges. And that's a sure thing because it exists. It's real. It exists. And people sustain it because it's to their own interest. I want to share here Nora Brazil, who lives in Texas. She says, yes, being brown has difficulties. When I went to Brazil to teach English, I had another American teacher call me wetback for being Mexican American and that my passport was falsified along with credentials. Since I live in a Hispanic community, I had never experienced racism, but stepping out was rude awakening of the inequality that exists. Ouch, that hurts. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry that we have this. It hurts. It's not easy. And going back here, when you talk about God, Straubin, and I want to say, Carol, you go to the Spirit's book by Kardec, law of equality.
Mhm.
It's a law of God.
Yes.
And we know it's all inside of
Yes.
us. And the first question Kardec asked was, are all people equal before God? And the answer is so straightforward.
Yes.
Yes, all are
The
gathered
answer
towards the same goal. God has made the divine laws for everybody. You often say the sun shines the same on everyone, and you thereby state a greater and more general truth than you might think. So there you go. Of course, here at Cardiac Radio, we are bringing the full sense of life, which without God doesn't exist. So now talking about equality at its foundation, where are we equal? We were equally created. Is it not written in the Constitution of the United States of America and in the Declaration? Carol?
Yes, it absolutely is written in the Declaration of Independence, which was definitely inspired by the On High, as Benjamin Franklin and others stepped up for equality. And what's beautiful in that movement that we see in the roots of our country, Vanessa, is that they peacefully resisted inequality by making systematic changes, as Liz pointed out. So our founding mothers and fathers already had this beautiful vision that grassroots changes were necessary, so much so that in the Constitution it says these rights were created by the people, for the people, and with the people. And so that vision needs to come alive in us again. And we don't need to fight for it with violence, as Trebling said, but we need to stand up for what we believe in. We need to have the courage to be different. Different in a sense of not responding violently when others may be. One person can already change an entire community if they stand up for what they believe in a nonviolent way. Dr. Martin Luther King did just that. He didn't go around pointing fingers and saying, you should not do this, shame on you. You don't see who I am, shame on you, da 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 da. He stood up for what he wanted and believed in, more with his examples and then later with his words. And his words are written in all of our hearts when he said, I have a dream that one day we shall sit together as brothers and sisters, one brother, one brotherhood, one sisterhood. These words brings tears to my eyes, and I ask for your forgiveness because it matches exactly what the Spirit's book says.
Yes.
In the under law of equality, one of the later questions, Vanessa, Kardec wisely asked, so for how long are inequalities going to be part of our society? And the answer from the spirits is so precise and so liberating. They say, inequalities were not created by God.
Yeah.
They were created by you.
Mhm.
Humanity. So it's your responsibility to undo them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
we are all being called to peacefully resist and peacefully voice what we stand for, to live by example. So if, for instance, others are around me are putting a certain group of people down based on the color of their skin or level of ability, I can stand up and say, I see those people differently. I respect you, but I see those people differently as children of God. And I would rather look at their abilities rather than disabilities. So I may not change the world, but I am planting a seed on that mind. I have to have the courage to break the protocols and peacefully stand up for what I believe in. This is exactly what our Master Jesus did and continues to do,
Yes. And the thing is
right?
this, we need to know what's at the root. What is sustaining these inequalities? What is the root cause of them? Because for us to uproot the inequality, we need to go to the cause of it. And I can't, though there are historical steps, but since ancient times, we have always had some people feeling better and more superior than others, etc. So we need to discuss a little about the root causes of inequalities, so we are able to address it at the root level. What comes to mind when we talk about the roots?
It's pride, that feeling of superiority that doesn't in fact exist because we were all created equal. But we as a whole, society as a whole, continues to repeat the same pattern, that of creating a false sense of superiority. And you're right, Vanessa, since Jesus' time and even before, this systematic illusion of superiority was already in place. And unfortunately, it's still here.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
don't you guys think that we often excite the pride of our children too much? Don't you think, Liz?
I do. I do. And it's hard as I'm raising children. It's every comment out of my mouth. I'm thinking, is that the correct thing to say or do? What am I? How am I teaching my child or my children or my students um, to be a better person? You know, every moment, every night I go to bed and I say, did I do a good job being a mother or a teacher or a friend today? You know,
Yeah, it's not easy, right, Stelben? It's when we talk about how we can do this peacefully, how can we turn things around, how can we uproot this systematic pride that becomes privilege, how can we change it, because it's so ingrained in the hearts of so many people. How do we do it?
Well, you were talking about the root cause, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the root cause is in selfishness, in that feeling that there's not enough. And if I don't
Mm,
get mine, okay, somebody's going to take it from me.
yeah.
I need to get mine, and I'm willing to do whatever I need to, step on whoever I need to get what I think I deserve. Okay? And so and again, that's just ingrained in the hearts of people, you know? And how do you change a heart? How do you change a heart? Like I don't know, you know? But here's what people who are like that, they are in fact, they are suffering. Okay? They're really suffering. And so I don't know if I have the power to change someone's heart, but Mahatma Gandhi said it perfectly. He said the most infectious thing in life is example.
Mm,
Okay? And so it is the most important thing that I do on a daily basis is to be that example. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. I have to be that. I have to be willing to be loving and kind to others. Okay, because am I believe that love, and it all comes down to love. Love is infectious, you know, and I want to be that virus. I want to be a love virus, and I want to infect everybody. I want to, and if we go into spiritism, we talk about people who are suffering, and they come in here for what's called an expiation. You know, they come in knowing that they're going to suffer different things. And so it's vitally important. I can't take away their suffering,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe I can lighten it. Maybe I can be a source of strength, a source of hope. Charles Dickens says that no life is useless that lightens the burden of another. And so to be of service, and if you ask me for what an answer might be, an answer may be service, being willing to serve um, those who might be suffering.
Wow. That's a proposal. And do you guys believe we can make these fundamental changes without God?
Never.
Never.
Why not?
No, never.
No.
Liz, why not?
No. You know, God is everything around us. We need to work hard. You know, I work hard to always try to remind me and my children that God is always around us and giving us the will to do better and to be a better person. And if someone tells you you cannot do anything, you know that God is by your side and that you will be able to do better and um, just be a better person. I've been ingrained this since I was a very little girl, and I hope I do the same with my kids, that I'm able to have them make better choices in life and become a better person. It doesn't matter if they were born brown or if they were born with different abilities or if they were, you know, God gave them a chance to be a better person. And they're here to become a better person. So, you know, I don't think I can do anything without God. You know, every moment of my day, I'm thinking how God has made um, us better people.
Thank you, Liz. What about you, Carol? Why not? Without God? Why not?
Because God is everything. God is us. If we didn't have God, we really wouldn't have anything. My voice is not mine. My body is not mine. My brain is not mine. My intelligence is not mine. Everything is given to me by God. How dare I not believe in God? If it weren't for God, I wouldn't exist, period. And that is humbling. And I think that if I took God away from my life, if I chose to embrace the other perspective, Vanessa, speaking only for myself, then I would be selfish because I would think of only my needs, where I am, what I think I'm supposed to do, and I would fail miserably because I can only see this in front of me. Whereas God is omnipotent, and God is the supreme intelligence of the universe. How dare I compare myself to the supreme intelligence of the universe?
Yeah.
And life becomes so much lighter when we can kindly cooperate with God and surrender our lives to God. We no longer have to behave like toddlers, saying, I can do it myself, I can do it myself, I can do it
Mm-hmm.
myself. Because that's but an illusion, and this is where equality comes in. Because when death comes along, for instance, all of these veils dissipate. And then where do we go? We can't help but face that reality. And this is also where spiritism comes in. We need the light of discernment to understand how equal we are. We don't have tools otherwise to understand even what equality is from a multidimensional, multi-millennial, multi-life, eternal point of view.
Yeah.
In this life, my name is Carol and I have this physical vest, but I am not this. This is the sum of my previous experiences as well, and the educational proposal created for me by God. So if I don't have the light of discernment, then I put myself in the position of a victim and I suffer all the more, and I'm likely to perpetuate the cycle.
Yes.
So if I want to break the cycle, God needs to be consciously in me, and I need to live a God-centered life with the light of discernment.
Yes. And talking about God, thank you, Carol. Straubin, in the Spirit's book, it says, God has not granted natural superiority to anyone, either by birth or by death. All are equal before God. It's likely that until everybody feels this way, we can't rest until people understand that. What do you think?
Oh, I totally agree. And it just isn't fair that I have to speak after Caroline.
Oh, no, you're so beautiful, Sylvan.
so
You're pure love.
so man, like how do I describe God? If I could describe God, it wouldn't be God, because I have really no concept of God. I know what God does. I know what God is in my life. And I see God in everything, you know? And so I often call God this entity that I don't know anything about, you know? And all I know is that God is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And in my life, God's been a source of tremendous amount of love. And so for me, it's important for me to have a relationship with God. How do I have this relationship with God? And here's what I've learned this through a lot of suffering, right?
Mm.
The relationship is this. My relationship with God is all about my relationship with you and everybody in my orbit. Okay? I can't say I love God and not love, my neighbor, not love the guy at the gas station, not love the guy at the grocery store, not love the lady in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
My relationship with God has to do with my relationship with everybody, especially people that disturb me, you know?
Mm-hmm.
How do I love that person? And learning how to love everybody, the more I can include in that love, okay? That has been my journey into this relationship with this wonderful, wonderful, amazing entity of love that I don't know much about, but I'd like to learn more.
A lot of food for thought, Liz.
And Vanessa, I also say that as a mom, I think it's the most important place to show love and teach our family about equality is in the home. I think it all starts in the home.
Mm-hmm.
I was taught since I was a little girl how important it is to teach it in the home. I see it with my triplets, how they struggle, and one might say, "Oh, I'm better than you. I can walk." And me as a mom, how I have to sit down and have these conversations with them and say, how do you even think that you're better because you can walk? And we have these real in-depth conversation when my children are 5 and 6 and 7, and I had to start having these conversations in the home. So I think one of the most important things is to have these conversations in your home with your children. Start there. That's like the most basic. How do you teach equality and talk about these conversations in the home? And begin there as a mom and as a teacher and as an educator. Um, those are where I had my most important conversations. How
Wow.
do I love louder? I tell my kids, love louder. You have
Mm,
to love louder. If someone says something to your friends, stand up for your friends.
mm-hmm.
Stand up for your sisters if someone says something to your sisters or
Wow.
your brother. We are all sisters and brothers. So stand up for your friends and your family, and be that voice. I think most importantly, be that voice so that all that they hear is love, right? How do I teach my kids how to love louder?
Oh, wow. You said it all. It begins at home. Hallelujah. Exactly. Of course, in our hearts with God. But if we don't start with our children, it's never going to reach any place.
The cycle will continue.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's where schools change. And I have to say this. I knew one United States until I had my daughter. Now I know the other side of the United States. Because when you begin to mingle with people in preschools, it's not even schools, you realize how we're raising our kids. And the one thing I concluded, it has to change. At higher education, we're doing so well in so many levels, so many levels. But when it comes to basic education, I would say we're failing, to say the least, in raising awareness in terms of equality, because that's everything, there, where everything starts. And I've seen with my own eyes, we could spend like hours telling Carol Correa, who has been part of our lives since then, she knows. We could tell cases after cases after cases here, and it would be shocking. It's not only about us, but other people too. And then when it goes to another level, it's just continuing what it started back when they were just little kids. So I love when you say it changes, it starts at home, and we need to teach our children to dare to love louder, right? Yeah, Straubin, you want to say something?
No, no, no. I'm doing a very good job listening right now.
I have to say,
May I add
yes,
something?
yes, please, Carol.
Uh, I think, Liz, thank you for sharing this. You are so right. We can change the world one parent at a time, that's for sure. I can share a little bit of what has happened to me as a child as well, because I had difficulty walking, difficulty talking, difficulty writing, even difficulty keeping my head upright. When I couldn't go to school in Brazil, the one school that accepted me. Every day I would hear, "You're too dumb to learn. You're too stupid to learn. You're not capable of learning." Every single day. Both the teachers and the students would say that. So I would go home crying, of course, as a child, and my mom would say, "Let's dance." to to a new moment of joy. And my mom would say to me, "You are ready, you are willing, and you are able." And then she would say, "What did the people say to you today?" And I would say, "Oh, they told me I'm dumb and I'm stupid." And my mom and my grandmother, both two very strong and capable women to whom I owe all my gratitude, said to me, do you think they really know you? Do you think they know you enough to really know you to the point of assessing who you are?" And I would say, as a 5-year-old, I would say, if I think about this hard enough, I think you're right. I think they don't know me. And then they both would say, "So do you think what they're saying is right? Go inside of you. Do you think you are stupid?" "No, mom, no, grandma." "Oh, so we got it. They don't know you enough." So then every day when I would be bullied at school on so many levels, my grandmother and my mom would say, "Do you think they know what they're talking about? Do they know you enough to really understand you?" "No." "Oh, okay." So I would say, "Oh, okay, I don't have to pay attention to that." But if it were not for these two women teaching me to think in this way, I would not be here right now.
Wow.
It all starts in the home.
Yeah,
Carol?
so I wanted to share this experience to say that I wholeheartedly agree with you. Investing in parents, grandparents, children can really change so many lives.
And that's when we want to talk about, thank you for sharing that, Carol. And that's when we want to talk about how Spiritism can help the progress of the earth. Kardec asked this question: how can Spiritism help the progress of the earth? By uprooting materialism. And how? By ridding our society of these fantasies of inequalities. And I say fantasy, not that they don't exist, but people create it in their minds out of privilege. As Travelin said, you said pride and selfishness, taking advantage. But we need to change it. And that's when Spiritism can help us raise new awareness and join forces with organizations and schools and everywhere we go, even at work, in our own way, speaking louder and no longer allowing for inequalities. And according to what we're seeing in the news, it's not over. Now it's going deeply in the roots of our society. The Redskins are contemplating changing their name.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Mount Rushmore. What's happening there? Who created it? Should we or should we not leave it alone? Because the one that created was belonged to the KKK. And we are hearing day in, day out, NASA changed its headquarters names. So little by little, we're seeing a monument's going to be put down, and not only in the United States, in the world. Why? Now we can say, because we are at Cardiac Radio. Because we're here, we can say it. The changes of the earth, its planetary transition. The bell is ringing and saying, now it's really enough. We cannot move forward to a world of regeneration without resolving these issues. We won't be able to get there. We won't. To get there, we need to resolve this. So we're saying to the whole audience at Cardiac Radio, wherever you are in the world, you are being called to take action. Whatever you are working, in whatever community, in your house, we can't be alienated and be aside of this. It's not about discussion. It's about fundamental changes and educational measures we need to take to show to people that there are things that need to be changed. And we need to allow people to speak up, because the fact of the matter is prejudices exist, they hurt. But before they heal, we need to clean it up. And we have to listen. The stories that are said, but people need, as a psychologist, I say, bring it out. And then we're going to heal it. We can only forgive if we sort things out. We can't organize them until we see them. And that takes courage. And that's why Jesus Christ said, we won't be able to come to another level of love if we don't have courage. So courage is part of the game. Have the courage to speak up, have the courage to heal, and have the courage to change. I'd like to pass the word and ask each one of you to say your final comments. We don't want to go away. It's so beautiful. There's so much work. But I'll begin with you, Straubing.
Oh
Please.
no, I just want to thank you for having me here. This has been just wonderful. I feel energized right now. You know what I mean? Anybody who talks to me for the rest of the day, man, you know, I'm gonna bowl them over with all my love. You know what I mean? But I just want to thank you. Thank you for having me and being a part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your love. Thank you. Now, Liz, please.
And Vanessa, I just want to say, just love louder. Teach your children to love louder. Break that cycle. Love louder wherever you're at the store, when you're working, when you're with your colleagues, when you're on the kitchen table with your children. Teach everyone around you to love. Love louder.
Oh, wow. Never forget it. I'll never forget that. Love louder. Now, Virginia, today. Love louder, Virginia. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you. And keep up
Thank
the
you.
good
I'm
work
honored,
you're doing.
Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank you. And Carol.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be part of this panel, Vanessa. What a beautiful experience. I would like to say thank you to Kardec Radio for its 9 years of beautiful nourishment for the soul. And I think we can promote equality, starting in our homes, as everyone has said, starting with ourselves, with examining our thoughts and feelings, with getting to know ourselves better, and then being more coherent with our beliefs, aligning our thoughts and feelings, actions and beliefs with our conduct in the home and outside of the home. So I think we need to do inner work to allow it to come out in a more coherent manner. And I think Spiritism has a role to help in the progress of humanity. So if we are wondering, how can we help? How can we help? Sharing the Spiritist teachings is a beautiful way to help, because this is the divine promised consoler. And because God wants for equality to be a reality, God is counting on us to spread it. We cannot hold it in our hands and keep it just for a few. That is inequality within Spiritism. Spiritism needs to stand for equality by spreading itself out through the four corners of the world. And we are being called to be equality spreaders of Spiritism. Bring equality to Spiritism by spreading it out all the way through in English, because English is the current global language. So if we want to promote equality, let us bring equality to the Spiritist movement. Spread it out.
Hallelujah. Yes, 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 yes. So, to wrap it up, Kardec Radio's poet, John DeRosa, he's inspired by loving louder, and he says, Love louder, my brothers and sisters. Let it wail as loud as it can be. Let us increase the volume and bury that opposite of love we all know it to be.
Oh, beautiful.
Beautiful. This is wonderful, and this is the joy of living, friends. Thank you. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Straubin. And thank you, friends at Cardiac Radio, for being here with us for these 9 years. And thank you also for being with us at this moment. Share the news, share the good. Don't be shy. Love louder. When you share the good, you're loving ever more loudly. And we hope you continue watching because there's more in this anniversary, more and more until midnight. A big hug to everyone. And until the next program, thank you, friends.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.